Is now chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York. And we appreciate your being here this morning. The impeachment officially starts today. What do you hope will be put forward making the case for impeachment that might compel some Republicans to change their minds?
Well, good morning. It's great to be with you. It's my hope that the foundation is laid for why the events of January 6th took place. Yes, of course, accountability needs to occur related to the fact that Donald Trump, in my view, did incite the violent insurrection that resulted in the spilling of American blood. But why did it occur? And foundationally, it took place because Donald Trump told a big lie, that he actually won the election and the presidency was stolen from him and artificially handed to Joe Biden. That's why the violent mob was there on January 6th, attacking the Capitol to halt the peaceful transfer of power. And the question should be asked over and over and over again. Had Donald Trump simply done what every other American president and presidential candidate has done, which is to accept the results and will of the American people, would the insurrection have occurred? The answer is unequivocally no.
Congressman, it's Willie Geist. Good to have you on again this morning. As you know, this is scheduled anyway to be a pretty speedy trial, looking for a vote perhaps as early as next week on this, with 16 hours of debate, testimony from each side, and then moving forward to a vote. Do you think they should take more time in the Senate to lay out this case, calling witnesses, for example, to really drive this home, or do you think it's a good idea to make this a speedy trial?
Well, in my view, this is an open and shut case. Donald Trump summoned the mob to Washington, D.C. He then incited the mob, I think urging them to fight at least 15 or 16 times, if not more, on that day, and had his henchmen use even more inflammatory rhetoric, things like trial by combat and other statements that were made. The other thing that then occurred is that he directed the mob to march on the Capitol, which they did, of course. And many of those individuals have publicly acknowledged, at least through their attorneys, that they were there because of the directions given by Donald Trump. Now, let's see how the trial unfolds. Ultimately, that call is going to be made by lead impeachment manager Jamie Raskin and the rest of the team in consultation, presumably, with the Speaker. You know, good attorneys make decisions based on how the evidence goes in, their read on the reaction of the jury, and whether additional information needs to be presented. So I expect that that call will be made at some point toward the latter part of this week after the president's lawyers make their case.
So the vote to convict would be an uphill climb for Democrats as they try to make the case. You need 17 Republicans to get a conviction here. If President Trump is acquitted, knowing everything that you just laid out about what he did, not just on January the 6th, but the lie he told in the months leading up to January the 6th, if he is acquitted and not impeached, not convicted on these impeachment charges, what message do you think that sends to the country? What message do you think that sends to history? And what message does it send to future presidents?
Well, let's take one step at a time. It's my hope that if the senators on both sides of the aisle follow the facts, apply the law, are guided by the Constitution, and let the chips fall where they may, it should lead 67 or more of them to conviction. Now, I recognize that that's a challenge. I'm not going to be Pollyannish about it. But I do believe that the 5 senators who voted to proceed with the trial in terms of it being constitutional, to have a trial connected to a former president, which is clearly the case based on precedent and the overwhelming balance of scholarly authority, that's a floor, not a ceiling. And that there still is the opportunity to find 12 other senators based on the evidence that is presented, which is going to be very compelling, who might see their way toward conviction. However, let's see what takes place. What I can say is that this is a defining moment in American history. The greatest generation rose to the occasion to defeat fascism. We're thankful. The Cold War generation rose to the occasion to defeat communism. We're thankful. Our generation now has to rise to the occasion to defeat authoritarianism and protect our democracy. The question is, will those senators stand up or step back and fail in their constitutional responsibilities?
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.